For lesson 6.7, we are going to be writing linear functions. So in order to do this, you need to remember that a linear function is in the form of y equals mx plus b. M is the slope and b is your y-intercept. So this one says for the linear function f of x, so that's going to be our y, f of x. It has a slope of 3, so our m is going to be a 3. And the y-intercept of -1. So we keep the x, and b is -1, so we're just going to put -1. So that is our equation. We're just plugging in the slope and the y-intercept where they go. For the next question, it says, how can you find more ordered pairs that are part of this function f of x equals 3x minus 1? Well, you could simply plug in some values for x. Plug in values for x. So for example, I could plug in 0. So f of 0 would be 3 times 0 minus 1. 3 times 0 is 0, and 0 minus 1 is -1. So the ordered pair would be 0 that we plugged in, and we got out -1. Or we could plug in 1. So we would have f of 1 equals 3 times 1 minus 1. So 3 times 1 is 3, and then we would have to minus 1. 3 minus 1 is 2. So this ordered pair, we plugged in 1, and we got 2 out. So we could continue on doing that for quite some time. There's lots of ordered pairs on that line. Next question says to write an equation for the linear function f of x. So we know that this is called f of x, whose graph has a slope of 0. So m is 0 and a y-intercept of 6. So then we know that's positive 6 at the end. So that right there is correct. However, I can simplify that up a little bit more because no matter what I plug in for x, it's always going to be multiplied by 0, which means it's going to be taken out. Anything times 0 is always going to be 0, and then you have to add 6 to that. So you're always going to get an answer of 6. So that would be our equation there. We don't need that 0x. And then if you think about the graph, remember f of x is really like y. So that's y equals 6. So if you had a coordinate plane that looked like that, you would have a straight line through y equals 6 because no matter what you plug in for x, you're always going to get an answer of 6 out. So if you have to go over 2, if you plug in 2 for x, you're going to have to go up 6. If you plug in 5, you're going to have to go up 6. So that is always going to be what f of x equals just a plain number will look like. All right, example 2. The table shows several ordered pairs of the linear function f of x. Write an equation. So now instead of telling you the slope is this and the y-intercept is that, plug it into the formula, we are actually going to have to start with 3 given ordered pairs that are on a line to figure out what the equation is. So the first step is we have to find the slope. So remember, slope formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So because we're given 3 ordered pairs, we only need to use 2 of them. So I'm going to use these first 2. So y, or remember this is the y column over here. Oops, there we go. We're going to use y out of the second point, which is -3, and we're going to minus y from the first point, which is 5. And then we're going to take x out of the second point, which is 3, and we're going to minus x out of the first point, which is -1. So simplify this. -3 minus 5 would be -8. And then 3 minus a -1 is really 3 plus 1, so that's 4. And -8 divided by 4 would give us -2. So our m value is -2. So now step 2 is to find the value of b. So what we're going to do is we're going to plug in what we know, which we just figured out. The slope was -2. So we have that much out of our y equals mx plus b formula. What we're going to do then is pick one ordered pair from our list of points, and plug those in for x and y. And it does not matter which one. Each ordered pair looking over there, each one has one negative number. I would stay away from the 7 and 11 because they are larger numbers, so smaller numbers are always easier to work with. But it does not matter. Whatever you plug in, you're going to get the same answer. So I'm just going to pick the first one, that -1, 5. So y is 5. And the x was -1. So just plugging them in, we have that. So we have to simplify. -2 times -1 is 2. And then we have to solve for b. So we're going to minus 2 from both sides. So this would be 3 equals b. So now we rewrite our equation using the two values that we found. So we know y equals -2x, and our b is a +3, so +3. So that is our equation. So find the slope, then use one of the ordered pairs to figure out what b is, and then rewrite your equation. Remember, x and y are all the different points on that line, so that's why we keep them as y and x in our equation, because we can plug them in and have an infinite number of different ordered pairs that are on that line. So there's not one set, they're not constant, those are definitely variables that can change. All right, example 2, the table shows several ordered pairs for the linear function f of x. Write an equation for f of x. It looks like I have a step 2, but not a step 1, so I'm not sure what happened in the transition over here to Cami, but we lost step 1, which is to find the slope. So instead of writing that all out, I'm just going to kind of simplify things. I'm going to start here, and remember we have to subtract. So I have 6 minus a -4. And then over here for the x's, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to have 1 minus a -1. So 6 minus a -4 is really plus. So 6 plus 4 is 10. And then 1 plus 1 is really 2. And if we simplify that down, we get 5. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So m equals 5 so far. And then we're going to pick one of those ordered pairs. I'm going to pick 1 and 6, this ordered pair here in the middle, because neither one is negative and they're smaller numbers, so they're easier to work with. So our y in that case is 6 equals m. X is 1. And we don't know what b is. We have to figure that out. So remember, you're plugging them in to this. So I'm just replacing what we know in that equation. And then we have to simplify. So 5 times 1 is 5. And then we have to solve. So I'm going to minus 5 from both sides. So 6 minus 5 is 1. And then we have a b here. So now I know that m is 5 and b is 1. I can write y equals 5x plus 1. Our last example, the graph shows the increase in pressure measured in pounds per square inch, which that's what our y-axis is labeled, as a scuba diver descends from a depth of 10 feet to a depth of 30 feet, and that is our x-axis. Pressure is a linear function of depth. At the water's surface, the pressure on the diver is a result of the pressure of the air in the atmosphere. What is the pressure on the diver at the water's surface? So what we have to figure out is what is our y value when x is 0. So in order to do that, we could extend that line, but as you can tell, we're probably going to be doing some estimation. We don't want to do that. We want to find an exact answer. So we're going to have to find the equation for this line. So for step 1, oh, my step 2 disappeared on this one. That's interesting. So step 1, find the slope. So since we have a graph, we can do. So we have to go up and then over. And if you look at our y values, because remember in the slope formula, it's y2 minus y1 on the top. So we have 19.1 and we have 28. So if we did 28 minus 19.1, we would get an answer of 8.9. And then we would have to do our x values at the bottom. So we would have 30 minus 10 which is 20. So we have 8.9 divided by 20, and that gives us about 0.445. If I can move this over here so I can't. I'm going to have to rewrite it. That's the edge of my paper. 0.445. So that's our M value. Now we're going to pick one of those points and plug that in. So find the slope. I'm going to rewrite that number down here so we have it. Step number 2, find the B value. And we are going to plug in. I'm going to use this point 3028 just because they're both whole numbers. The other point 19.1 isn't whole, so it's easier to use whole numbers. So our Y value in that point is 28. So Y equals MX plus B. So equals 0.445. The X value in that point is 30. And then plus B. So to simplify that, we're going to have to do 0.445 times 30. And that is 13.35. So 28 equals 13.35 plus our B. And then we're going to have to minus 13.35. So B is left here, and 28 minus 13.35 is 14.65. So we can rewrite our equation. Y equals 0.445x plus 14.65. Now the question asked us to find the pressure when the diver was at the water surface, and that means it was 0 feet below the water. So we would plug 0 in for x. And if I did that, I would have to multiply 0.445 times 0 and then add 14.65. So multiplying that by 0 is going to be 0. And then 0 plus 14.65 would be 14.65. So this diver would have 14.65 pounds per square inch of pressure at the water's surface.